Welcome to Hornets Live, presented by Carolina Ford Dealers. Final score here in Uptown Charlotte, 110-104 in favor of the Detroit Pistons. It was a packed house here at the Spectrum Center. Hornets made it very tight at the end of this game. Almost for a second thought we might be able to come back. But just the emotions, I think, from start to finish, but particularly in that third quarter, which we're going to get into. What'd you see from start to finish?
Okay, start to finish. With the third quarter and everything that happened there, I really think that this game serves as a line of demarcation on the season for a couple of different reasons. One, it is now post 9-game win streak. That matters. That puts you on the national spotlight. Two, it's the game post-brawl with the Detroit Pistons. Not only are they the Pistons and are they the physical basketball team, they're the number one seed in the Eastern Conference. It felt like the Hornets were here, and they're here to stay because they're one that fights their tails off to the very end, as you mentioned, with Khan flying for rebounds, making big shots. Unbelievable basketball game.
Yeah, and you heard Dylan and Eric say many times it felt big. This game felt very big. It was a packed house. There was a lot of emotions, a lot of physicality. Felt like a playoff-style game. So definitely good for this young team to experience this. But let's get back to the third quarter, because that was really kind of the emotional events that took place, where we saw Miles Bridges and Moussa Diabate head to the locker room, get ejected. This is where it all started. Jalen Duren and Moussa Diabate just battling under the basket. But of course, Jalen puts his hands on Moussa, and Moussa, man, completely lost it.
It could not get calmed down in the slightest, and he's still going. And as you can see, it's going to be that second charge that really does Moussa and this whole brawl in. Before this happens, I wrote down on my notes, this is a rugby match of a game. And then that possession happened where Moussa and Jalen Duren got into it. Of course, we kept going with Miles Bridges, and then Beef Stew, who's done this before. Will be interesting to see the suspensions, the punishments that are dished out by the league, because he's a repeat offender in this sort of sense. We're going to have a lot to try to figure out here as the season goes on.
There are players that go their entire careers without having to deal with the emotions that this team dealt with in the third quarter alone. Not even chatting or talking about what happened with Charles Lee getting ejected a little bit later. But for them to regroup, refocus, the internal sort of, and I guess the trust and the communication that they have, where does that start with this group?
Well, one, it starts with a lot of leadership with these young guys growing up. How about Khan Knipple? You ask me, where can the Hornets, where can they lean? Who do they go to try to manufacture some offense and go to for emotional support? How about Khan actually showing some emotion? We've made it such a thing all season that Khan is a basketball robot. He doesn't show a lot of it. He's slapping the chair. You can see him actually give the Tiger Woods fist pump after making a couple of threes. I thought Josh Green was excellent in this one with the defensive-minded mentality that he brought. Grant Williams, somebody that we called being a leader because he has been on the bench all season long. Look, we can talk about them fighting for sure, quite literally in the third quarter, but I think you go to the fourth without 40% of your starting lineup and your head coach, who got ejected in this game, and you can see this is not the same old Hornets team anymore.
Yeah, no, and I made the observation at the third quarter at the fast break about Grant Williams being sort of that calm. I saw him over there talking to them every single time. Actually saw Kobe White at one point lean over towards the end of this game and have a conversation with LaMelo Ball. So you really do feel, not only guys, I mean, I mentioned Grant and Kobe. Those are two guys who have been in playoff type scenarios, and you're already sort of feeling the effect that they can have on some of these younger players.
Look, you needed to lean on your stars to settle down, right? There was no doubt about that, but also your leaders in Grant Williams trying to help you out because he's been with the Boston Celtics on a big time run in the Eastern Conference. Same thing with Dallas. Even if he wasn't there long, that was a team that had championship aspirations. And Charles Lee has leaned on him all season long, really, as being that other coach off of the bench. And you saw him talk to the officials a lot tonight, especially trying to calm guys down. There was a couple times in the fourth quarter now where I thought there were some individual matchups, and brouhaha seemed strong. Just a little something. Had me raising my eyebrow just a little bit with some of the other potential scuffles that could have happened.
That was a straight up brawl, not a brouhaha.
And the third quarter it was.
Yeah, that's right. Our Carolina Ford Dealers keys to the game. Let's take a look at this. Of course, we saw Paul Reed. Here's our stats right here. Field goal percentage. We knew that they were going to get busy in the paint. They did that. The turnovers, still for the Hornets, way too high, I'm sure. What Coach Charles Lee will say, 23 points off of those turnovers and steals. We knew this was going to be a defensive match, on the favor of the Pistons just because of how hard they play defense. 12 steals in this game.
I thought the Hornets really had a tough time getting into the paint and then creating some looks for others once they did that. They did kick it out, I thought, a lot better in the second quarter to really try to revolve their offense. Everything had to do with the three-point line. I talked about Khan setting some of those screens and then springboarding, creating that separation to get a couple of shots to fall down. You saw that in the fourth quarter. Also, the other thing I do want to mention is the bench and how well they played.
Yeah, 21 turnovers for the Charlotte Hornets tonight. That's something that Coach Lee has been stressing needs to get down. Paul Reed, we heard his name a lot in the third and fourth quarter, and that's because he came in for Jalen Duren. Of course, Isaiah Stewart was ejected as well as Jalen Duren. He came off the bench and just was fantastic. To be able to come off the bench, no warm-up, just get in and do what he did, a lot of credit has to go to him.
They don't call him B-Ball Paul for nothing, and you can see it with some of those slams. How about blitzing on some of these screens, really creating a lot of havoc against LaMelo Ball and against some of those other guards that are just trying to handle it, try to find a lane into the paint. He wasn't allowing it. He was sensational in this game, being called upon off of the bench. Actually had a good game against the Knicks where he scored 12 points in place of Jalen Duren. Pretty good third-string center to have on your roster.
Yeah, we talk about controlling the emotions on the Charlotte Hornets side, but I mean, the Pistons had to do it just as much as well without two of their big guys. And to see Reed come in and do what he did, it had to go to the line immediately. And this place was not quiet when he was at the line.
I've never felt the Spectrum Center like this before.
Yeah.
It's true. I've never seen it like this, especially just with the circumstances that this one called for. We knew that it was going to be a tough game. We knew that they had the number one overall seed in the Eastern Conference in town tonight. We knew that they were physical, and this team, this fan base responded against the Detroit Pistons with the way that they were standing up. I took a video too of it where everybody's standing up at the 4-minute mark. Nobody's sitting down, and they're all chanting in support of their team.
You guys will have a lot to talk about on Locked On Hornets for sure. Let's take a look at our FanDuel same game parlay. FanDuel, play your game. LaMelo Ball, just fantastic in this game. 20 plus points made. In foul trouble most of the game with LaMelo Ball, but we saw him be able to stay on the court, stay in control, and they needed him tonight.
They were really physical with him. We knew that that was going to be the case coming into this game, and I wondered when Charles Lee was going to go to him in the fourth quarter, and they did so right around the 7-minute mark, just a little bit under. The bench held on as much as they possibly could, but LaMelo, of course, he's the organizer. I think you saw some of that down the stretch.
Continue to play under control despite the emotions in this game. Here's some other things that hit tonight. Khan was great from the three-point line. Stop me if you've heard that one. Also, 20-point game, and Brandon Miller again. We're going to hear from Brandon Miller coming up on Hornets Live, your post-game show. We're also going to hear from Coach Charles Lee. A lot of emotions in this one tonight. We'll hear what the head coach and one of the star players of the game had to say about the way that things went down here on Hornets Live. We'll be right back. A lot of emotions in this game here tonight. Uptown Charlotte, final score 110-104. Coach Charles Lee, one of the men who were ejected in the second half. He is at the podium right now. Let's hear what he had to say.
Yeah, this was a freaking great game for us. Phenomenal opportunity for us to play, the top seed right now, or the number one team in the East, team that's been in the playoff. They've been tested. They bring a level of physicality and competitiveness to them, and I think they bring out the best of you. And I think that overall our guys responded to every run that they went on, all the physicality. And so I think we got a lot better tonight. Result won't reflect that. But again, I thought our process and for most of the night, our competitive spirit, our togetherness was really good.
What did you see from your perspective and the fight where the ejections happened?
Yeah, I'll have to go back and watch it again. Just looked like, ton of physicality, and two guys kind of got in a heated conversation, and then it kind of spiraled from there.
For you to get ejected, what was the reason for that?
Yeah, I take ownership of it. I thought that we were competing our tails off. I thought that it was a very physical game, and Grant's walking down the paint and barely touched somebody, and the guy fell over, and that's what we're going to call the foul. So again, they have a hard job to have to make these calls, but I don't think that was like the consistency of what had been called the rest of the game.
Felt like a move of solidarity there almost with that, standing up for your team with the calls that you mentioned maybe not have been going your way. Can you just talk about maybe it hitting the boiling point at a certain point, and how you kind of reacted to that?
Yeah, I got to have a little bit better emotional control in that moment. But these guys, I just love everything that they brought tonight from a competitive spirit. I thought we did a ton of really good things, and we got better. And, this was a really good game for us.
Like a physical playoff atmosphere, the crowd was rocking for the majority of it. What did you learn about your team in the 48 minutes they played tonight?
Yeah, just learned about the type of consistent competitors that they are. It wasn't always pretty. We had 21 turnovers, and we did definitely talk about we want to take better care of the ball going into this game. But, I thought last time we played this team, we didn't have a great offensive output, but we got better from that night. I think tonight we responded to that challenge, and I think that we'll be better from tonight's game as well.
Focusing on more the basketball side, it felt like you guys did a great job of running Duncan Robinson off the three-point line in that first quarter and kind of limiting them. What did you see from the defensive standpoint in this game? Yeah, man, I saw like a bunch of our guys just really, crawling into the offensive players and trying to refuse to be screened. I thought for the most part, we made it tough on Cunningham to see that they went 5 for 25. I thought some of the switching actually helped us to get out of center field and allow him to he kind of just kept getting to his spots and raising up and, switching and throwing a couple of the double teams at him. I thought threw him off his rhythm, but the guys, chasing Duncan Robinson off is a task, and Tobias Harris in the post. But, for the most part, I think we did a lot of really good things. Can't wait to watch the film and see where we can get better.
Charles, did you talk to Musa after the game? And obviously he was pretty upset in that moment about what kind of set him off.
Yeah, I talked to him, and that's between Musa and I, but he's in a good place.